Debit adjustment codes. Anytime you're posting a charge to a patient's account, you want to let the patient know why you're posting the charge. For that, we have procedure codes when the doctor performs a procedure. But what if those charges are for things like interest fees, balance forwards, no-show fees because the patient didn't show up for the appointment, or a return check fee? Well, they have what's called debit adjustment, and there are default codes set up in your system that you can use, or you can create your own. To do so, you'll go under the Master Files menu, down to Transaction Codes, and over and up to Debit Adjustment Codes. To take a look at the default codes already in your system, go ahead and click on the ellipsis button. And you'll see here anything that has a pound sign in front of it, that's a software default. And you can see down below I've created two myself. For this example, I'm going to use the interest and double click on that. And you can see it's faded, so I can't change it, and I can't even delete it. But what I can do if I wanted to is I could change the description. If I want to create my own debit adjustment code, I can click clear. Of course, type in a code, anything you want here, and then just give it a description. So when you post a charge to the patient's account, you'll know why you're posting a charge, and so will the patient when it shows up on their patient's account, and optionally you can include it on their statements. And then next you have your third option is how you want to display on the report your code here and the charge that goes with it. Do you want to display it as a debit adjustment or a charge? In other words, do you want your charges to appear in the debit adjustment column as a negative number or in the charge column as a positive number in your reports? Let me show you a report and you can see what I'm talking about here. I'm going to go up under the Reports menu, down to Financial Totals, over and up to Analysis of Service Detail. And for this report, it's going to pull all the charges, payments, and write-offs within a certain date range, and I want to define that for my low date. I'll go back to February 1st here, and for my end date or high date, I'll go back to February 28th and double click on the 28th. Now if I leave all the other fields blank, it'll pull in everything. For example, all the providers that are in this office key, unless I wanted to define what provider I want to look at. Otherwise, click on the Generate button, and this is what you'll see here. So in your reports, remember the two options you have when you're posting debit adjustments or setting up your codes. When you post it, do you want it to appear in this column here, the charge column, or select the adjustment option and have it appear as a negative number in the adjustment column? Now before, this used to be called the write-off, but with the updates, it's now called the adjustment. Now I want to give you a warning. If you use the adjustment, it'll clash with your write-offs as a negative versus a positive number. And this is what I mean. I'm going to scroll down. You see two numbers here for the patient mark. The first number is a $2 positive number, and that was a write-off. I posted a write-off. It shows as a $2 positive. This is a debit adjustment, which it comes up as a negative. So the total here comes up to a 0. If I posted a higher debit adjustment or $5 or $6 that I'm now in write-off debt, it doesn't look good, and I would prefer not to use the debit adjustment at all. I would rather use the charge. In fact, preferably, I'd rather use the procedure codes because there are more reports to pull in for your procedure codes and saying I have a procedure code for balance forward than I do with my debit adjustments at this time. So let me close out and go back to our debit adjustment codes and finish up. You can add a note here, and it's only going to be available from the master files. It won't go out on the patient statements. And then when you're finished, be sure to save your work. I'm going to click clear, and you'll notice that you have an include on insurance claims. This is only for the tax option. And basically this only applies to Hawaii. If I go ahead and double click on the sales tax, it gives me the option to include that on the insurance claims. And you can include a note. Now, of all the debit adjustments, the only one, me personally, that I'll post is for interest. In other words, if the insurance carrier was supposed to pay you $100 on an insurance claim that's 6 months late, and because of being late, they're going to pay you interest, like an extra $20 or $30, then what I'll do is later on when you watch the training video on posting payments, I can go ahead and post the charge, the interest, the extra $20 they paid me as a charge first using the debit adjustment code, and then go ahead and apply the $20 payment so we can zero it out. First the $20 charge as a debit adjustment code, and then the $20 payment. And the reason why, because that seems to be the easiest for posting interest that I really don't need to keep track of in most of my reports. My preference is, and it will be probably for a long time, is to use the procedure codes instead of using the debit adjustment codes. In other words, if I have a balance forward or I have a no-show fee, I'm going to set up a no-show procedure code and post it that way. And the reason why is because right now there are more reports I can pull on procedure codes than I can on debit adjustments. And I like that flexibility to have more options when pulling reports for procedure codes than I do debit adjustment. And then also not to get caught up in if I'm going to use it as a negative in the write-off column or adjustment column or as a positive. But again, that's up to you here.